Have you ever wondered what happens when a body simply refuses to follow the laws of nature? My name is David, and I've been working as a morgue technician at Memorial Hospital in Chicago for 14 years. What I'm about to tell you will make you rethink everything you know about what happens after life ends. It was a freezing Tuesday morning in November, around 3 a.m. I was alone on the overnight shift when I received a body coming from the emergency room. Male, 47 years old, traffic accident victim. The report stated he had been deceased for approximately 2 hours. Standard procedure: transport the body, catalogue, prepare for the medical examiner to examine in the morning. I placed the body on the stainless steel gurney and began the documentation process. That's when I noticed something strange. There was fresh blood dripping from the bag. Not coagulated, dark blood. Bright red, fresh blood. Impossible. A body that had been lifeless for 2 hours doesn't bleed like that. I slowly unzipped the body bag. What I saw made me take 3 steps back. The body was covered in fresh blood that continued flowing from the wounds. But that wasn't all. The blood was warm. I placed my hand near the body and felt heat emanating from it. I grabbed the infrared thermometer, something I had never done before on a body. I pointed it at his chest. 34 degrees Celsius. A body dead for 2 hours should be at room temperature, maximum 20 degrees. I immediately called the responsible nurse from the emergency room. "Are you sure he had no vital signs when you sent him here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Absolutely. No pulse, no breathing, fixed and dilated pupils. He had been deceased for 45 minutes before we sent him." "Why?" I explained the situation. Silence on the other end of the line. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "David, I prepared the body myself. He was completely cold when we placed him in the bag, and the wounds had stopped bleeding." I hung up and looked at the body again. The bleeding had increased. Now it was forming a pool on the table. I placed my trembling hand on his neck, searching for a pulse. Nothing, but the skin was warm, almost hot. That's when his eyes opened. They didn't blink, didn't move. They simply opened all at once, fixed on the ceiling. I screamed and backed away, hitting the instrument shelves behind me. I stood there, frozen, waiting for him to move, breathe, do anything. But he remained completely motionless, eyes open, staring at nothing. I ran to the phone and called the on-call doctor. Dr. Peterson arrived in 4 minutes that felt like hours. When he entered the room, he looked at the body and then at me. "David, what the hell happened here?" I explained everything while he cautiously approached. He checked the vital signs again. Nothing. No pulse, no breathing. But the body remained warm and bleeding. Dr. Peterson grabbed a flashlight and examined the open eyes. "This makes no medical sense whatsoever," he murmured. "No cardiac activity, no blood flow, but elevated body temperature and active hemorrhaging. It's physiologically impossible." We decided to leave the body under continuous observation. Dr. Peterson stayed with me. During the next 3 hours, we witnessed something no medical textbook explains. The body slowly cooled down, degree by degree. The bleeding gradually decreased, and the eyes remained open the entire time, as if watching his own transition between 2 worlds. At 6:15 in the morning, the body's temperature finally reached 18 degrees. The bleeding stopped completely. It was only then that his eyelids closed on their own, as if he finally had permission to rest. Dr. Peterson ordered a complete investigation. We tested everything: toxicology, post-mortem neurological exams, blood analysis. All results came back normal. The man had died in the accident. There was no medical explanation for what happened. But here's what haunts me to this day. When I cleaned the room after they took the body away, I found something in the pool of blood. Marks, not from hands or fingers. They were marks of something being dragged through the blood, as if invisible fingers had traced patterns. And the marks formed words. "Wasn't ready." I never told Dr. Peterson about this. I cleaned everything and threw it away, but every time I receive a body from a traumatic accident late at night, I check the temperature. Always, because now I know that sometimes the body refuses to accept that it's over. If you're watching this at 3 a.m., leave a like to give me strength and subscribe to the channel because these morgue stories are real and you need to know what happens when the lights go out.
There's an unwritten protocol among morgue technicians. Never, ever open a drawer without reason. My name is Rebecca, and I've been working at Riverside Morgue in Seattle for 9 years. I learned this rule the hard way. It all started when we transferred an elderly patient from a domestic accident. 83-year-old woman, fatal fall down the stairs. No known family, no identification. John Doe, number 247. We placed her in drawer 7, third row, right side. The procedure was to wait 72 hours to try to locate relatives before proceeding with the autopsy. During those 3 days, strange things began to happen. First was the smell. Not the normal smell we unfortunately know well in this job. It was perfume. Lavender perfume. Strong, almost suffocating. It came specifically from the third row drawer area. Did someone spill perfume here? I asked Jake, my shift colleague. He denied it. We checked all the drawers. Nothing. But the smell persisted, stronger at night. On the second night, I was cataloging new bodies when I heard it. A low, rhythmic sound. Like someone gently tapping on metal. It was coming from the wall of drawers. I froze, listening. Tap, tap, 2 knocks. A pause, 3 knocks, again. Jake, are you hearing this? He stopped what he was doing. We stood there, 2 experienced professionals, afraid of a sound. The knocking continued. Always 3, always with the same pause. Jake approached the drawers, trying to locate where the sound was coming from. He placed his hand on each drawer, feeling for vibrations. When he touched drawer 7, the knocking stopped instantly. It's the temperature changing the metal, he said, but it didn't sound convincing. Thermal expansion. I wanted to believe it. But thermal expansion doesn't explain rhythmic patterns. On the third night, I was alone. Jake had left early for a family emergency. It was my responsibility to close the shift. Around 2:30 a.m., I began the final check routine. The lavender perfume was unbearable, so strong my eyes were watering, and the knocking started again. Tap, 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 drawer 7. I grabbed my flashlight and approached. It's just metal, I repeated to myself. It's just metal, expanding. That's when the drawer began to open on its own. Not all at once. Slowly, inch by inch, sliding out with a metallic creak. I backed up until I hit the opposite wall. My heart was beating so hard I could hear the blood in my ears. The drawer stopped when it was 6 inches open. I stood there, paralyzed, staring at that dark opening. The lavender perfume poured out, so intense I had to cover my nose. Then I heard the voice. Weak, hoarse, but unmistakable. Help me. Every fiber of my being screamed to run away. But my medical training spoke louder. What if she was alive? What if we had made a terrible mistake? I forced myself to walk to the drawer, hands trembling. I held the edge and pulled it completely out. The fluorescent light illuminated the elderly woman's body. She was exactly as we had left her. Pale skin, bluish lips, eyes closed, completely motionless. I placed my hand on her neck, searching for a pulse. Nothing. Skin cold as marble. You're imagining things, Rebecca, I said aloud, trying to calm myself. You're not, the voice replied, coming from inside the body. The lips didn't move. The eyes remained closed. But the voice continued, I'm trapped. I jumped back, tripping over my own bag. This isn't happening. This isn't happening. Wrong drawer, the voice continued, still coming from that motionless mouth. He's in my drawer. He put me in her place. He switches the bodies. Who switches? The night technician. He changes the identifications, puts the wrong people in the wrong places. Families take home the wrong bodies. Autopsies are performed on the wrong people. Look at the tags, please. With violently trembling hands, I grabbed the tag from drawer 7, Jane Doe number 247, 83 years old, fatal fall. Then I looked at the tag on the body's wrist. The numbers didn't match. It read John Doe, number 251. I started frantically opening other drawers. Drawer 3, tag said, 45-year-old man, but the body was a young woman. Drawer 11, tag said child, but there was a middle-aged man. All the drawers, all wrong. Oh my God, I whispered. How many bodies? How many families? Months. The voice answered. He's been doing this for months. Families burying the wrong people. Autopsies, documenting the wrong bodies. Everything wrong. Everything mixed up. But why? Why would someone do this? Because he can. Because nobody checks. Because down here, in the dark, he is God. I called the supervisor immediately. A complete investigation was initiated. It took 3 weeks to discover. Jake, my colleague I'd trusted for 9 years, had systematically switched identifications of over 200 bodies over the course of 8 months. He eventually confessed, said it was a social experiment. He wanted to prove that nobody really cares, that the dead are just numbers, paperwork, procedures, that he could play with human bodies and nobody would notice. He was right about one thing. Nobody had noticed. Until that night. Jake is in prison now. But it took 11 months to correct all the errors. Exhumations, new DNA tests, devastated families discovering they had buried strangers. As for the woman from drawer 7, we checked every record. There was no John Doe number 251 in the system. That number never existed. And we couldn't identify who she really was. But here's what keeps me awake. That night, when I finished reviewing all the drawers and looked at her again, I saw something that wasn't there before. A tear. A single tear was running from the corner of her closed eye, and the lavender perfume. I discovered weeks later that it was Jake's mother's favorite brand. She had passed away 10 years earlier. He kept a bottle in his locker, hidden behind the supplies. I work at a different morgue now, but I still check the tags, twice, 3 times, because I learned that sometimes the dead find ways to tell us when something is wrong. Leave a like if you want more disturbing morgue stories. And activate the bell so you don't miss any story, because the next one is even scarier.
If someone tells you that death is definitive, that it happens once and it's over, that person has never worked in a morgue. My name is Marcus, a morgue technician at County Medical Center in Detroit. This is the story of the only man I've seen die 3 times. His name was Thomas Wright, 52 years old. He arrived to us one April morning after an alleged fatal heart attack at home. His wife had called the ambulance, but when paramedics arrived, he had been lifeless for at least 20 minutes. They took the body to the hospital as standard procedure, where he was officially declared deceased by Dr. Harrison at 9:47 in the morning. I received the body at 10:30. Normal procedure, transfer to gurney, catalogue belongings, prepare for autopsy scheduled for the next day. Nothing unusual. He looked like a normal middle-aged man, slightly overweight, with a peaceful expression. I placed the body in cold chamber number 4 and returned to my paperwork. 40 minutes later, the temperature alarm for chamber 4 went off. This rarely happens. The chambers are designed to maintain constant temperature between 2 to 4 degrees Celsius. I went to check, imagining it would be a sensor failure. I opened the cold chamber door. The temperature inside was 12 degrees. Impossible. The system doesn't fail like that, doesn't rise 8 degrees in 40 minutes. I approached Thomas Wright's body on the middle shelf. It was warm, not lukewarm. Warm, as if he had a fever. I touched his forehead with my palm and recoiled immediately. It must have been around 40 degrees or more. I grabbed the thermometer and confirmed 39.8 degrees Celsius. A body dead for almost 2 hours shouldn't have a high fever temperature. I ran to call Dr. Harrison. He came immediately, equally confused. We checked vital signs again. Nothing. No pulse, no breathing, no brain activity on the portable electroencephalogram, but the temperature kept rising. Some kind of atypical post-mortem biochemical process? The doctor thought aloud. Accelerated bacterial decomposition, but it would be impossible to generate so much heat so quickly. We decided to transfer the body to the autopsy room for constant monitoring. As soon as we placed him on the table, he started sweating, not small drops. He was drenched as if he had run a marathon. Sweat poured from his pores, forming puddles around the body. "This defies all medical logic," Dr. Harrison murmured, making frantic notes. At 11:43, exactly 1 hour and 56 minutes after being declared deceased, Thomas Wright took a deep breath and opened his eyes. Not a gasp, a complete, loud, desperate inhalation. His chest expanded, his hands contracted, and his eyes widened. He was alive. Dr. Harrison immediately initiated emergency procedures. We checked all vital signs. Strong pulse, 95 beats per minute. Stable breathing. Blood pressure, 140/90. He was frighteningly alive. Thomas looked at us, confused, trying to speak. His voice came out hoarse. "What? Where am I?" "You're at the hospital, Mr. Wright. You had a heart attack."
You need to understand something about working in a morgue. You see everything. Tattoos, scars, stories written on people's skin. My name is Sarah. I've been working at Metropolitan Morgue in Boston for 12 years. I thought I had seen everything, until the day I realized the bodies were being marked. It started subtly. A small mark behind the ear of a man who died from diabetic complications. It looked like a tiny tattoo, a black dot. I documented it in the report like all other body markings. Didn't think much of it. 2 weeks later, a woman who had died in a car accident. Same mark, same location, behind the left ear. A perfect black dot. Coincidence, I thought. Maybe it's a new tattoo trend. But then more came. 5 bodies in 1 month. All with the same mark. Always behind the left ear. Always perfectly circular. The size of a pinhead. I mentioned it to Dr. Chen, the medical examiner. "Have you noticed these tattoos everyone is getting now?" He looked at the records I showed him. He frowned. "Sarah, this is strange. These people have nothing in common. Different ages, different causes of death, different neighborhoods, and a tattoo behind the ear so small you can barely see it. Who would do that?" We decided to pay closer attention. Over the next weeks, we checked each body meticulously. Not all had the mark, but approximately 1 in 5 did. Always the same location. Always the same size. It was Tony, the night technician, who noticed the real pattern. "Sarah, you need to see this." He called me one night. He had a magnifying glass and a flashlight, examining the mark on a body that had just arrived. "This isn't a normal tattoo. Look closer." I grabbed the magnifying glass. Under magnification, the black dot revealed details. It wasn't solid. It was composed of tiny lines. Lines that formed ... numbers. "They're dates," Tony whispered. "This mark is a date." We examined all the bodies we still had in the cold chamber that had the mark. Tony was right. Each dot was actually a micro-tattoo of a date. And it wasn't just any date, it was the date of their death, exact day, month, year. How is this possible? I asked, feeling a chill run up my spine. They were marked with the date of their own deaths. We reviewed old records, bodies that had already been released, buried, cremated. We got autopsy photos from 23 cases with the mark. All had the exact date of death tattooed behind their ear. Someone is killing these people, Tony said. Someone marks them and then kills them on the specific date. But it didn't make sense. The causes of death were varied. Car accident, heart attack, fall, food poisoning, surgical complications. No pattern. No connection besides the mark. We went to the police. A detective named Morrison was put in charge. They investigated for 3 months, interviewed family members of victims. Nobody knew about the marks. Nobody had noticed. They were so small, so discreet, hidden behind the ear. Maybe they didn't even know they had them, Morrison suggested. A person doesn't regularly check behind their own ears. The investigation led nowhere. No witnesses. No links between victims. Nothing. Until I received a body that changed everything. It was a Tuesday, early afternoon. 34-year-old man, Jacob Reeves, death by drowning in his own apartment. Found in the bathtub. Apparently fainted and drowned. Tragic, but not necessarily suspicious. I was preparing the body when
Technology and death shouldn't mix. At least that's what I thought. My name is Kevin, a morgue technician at Pacific Northwest Medical Center in Portland. This story will make you rethink everything about what happens to our electronic devices when we die. The donor was Jennifer Adams, 32 years old. Motorcycle accident, head trauma. Brain death declared, but body kept functioning on life support until organ recovery could be coordinated. She was a registered donor. Everything was in order. Liver, kidneys, corneas. 5 lives potentially saved by her generous decision. The recovery procedure was performed at 6 a.m. Standard, professional, respectful. Her organs were transported to various hospitals where recipients were waiting. Her liver went to a 47-year-old man named David Chen in Seattle. Successful surgery. No complications. He woke up grateful for a second chance. 3 days later, David started having strange dreams. They weren't his dreams. They weren't his memories. They were hers. Jennifer's. He saw through her eyes, lived moments of her life. I thought they were just side effects from post-surgery medications, he told me later when everything came to light. Hallucinations caused by immunosuppressants. But they were so vivid, so real. In the dreams, he saw an apartment that wasn't his. He saw a man, a face he didn't recognize but somehow knew was dangerous. He saw arguments, violence, fear. And he saw something else. He saw this man messing with her motorcycle. In the garage late at night when he thought she was sleeping, loosening something on the brake. Deliberately. David woke up sweating, heart racing. They were dreams, he told himself. Just dreams. But he couldn't stop thinking about it. The dreams continued. Every night, more details, more memories that weren't his. Finally, 2 weeks after surgery, he decided to investigate. He looked up Jennifer Adams online, found the accident report. Brake failure caused the motorcyclist to lose control at high speed. Tragic accident. Brake failure. Exactly what he had seen in the dreams. David contacted the police, explained the situation the best he could, knowing how crazy it would sound. I received her liver, and I'm having memories from her, showing that her boyfriend sabotaged the motorcycle. The detective was skeptical, naturally. Mr. Chen, I understand you went through traumatic surgery. Sometimes the mind creates narratives. I can describe her apartment. I can describe the boyfriend. I can tell you where he put the tool he used. It's in a blue box in the corner of the garage, under old rags. Please, just investigate. Maybe to appease him, maybe because something in his desperation sounded genuine. The detective decided to check. They went to the apartment Jennifer shared with her boyfriend, Marcus Wright. With a search warrant, they checked the garage. They found the blue box. Under old rags, exactly where David said. Inside, A wrench with brake fluid residue and small metal marks that matched the components of Jennifer's motorcycle brake. Marcus Wright was arrested. During interrogation, he eventually confessed. Jennifer had broken up with him. He was furious. Couldn't accept it. He sabotaged her motorcycle, hoping to cause a small accident that would scare her, make her need him again. He didn't plan to kill her, but she was driving faster than he expected. When the brakes failed at high speed, he was charged with second-degree murder. It was the first case in Colorado where transplant memories testimony was considered as a starting point for investigation, although not as direct evidence in court. But here's where the story gets even more disturbing. Other recipients of Jennifer's organs started reporting similar experiences. The woman who received her right kidney started having unexplained panic when seeing certain motorcycle brands. Had never been a motorcyclist, but suddenly had intense fear of specific motorcycles. The man who received the left kidney started having nightmares about falling. Always the same fall from the point of view of someone coming off a motorcycle. The woman who received the corneas reported seeing flashes of a threatening man. Always the same face. When shown a photo of Marcus Wright, she said, "That's the man I see. How do I know this face?" 4 of 5 recipients reported some kind of memory, feeling or knowledge that couldn't be theirs. This triggered massive scientific interest. Researchers interviewed everyone, documented the experiences, and began investigating something that was previously considered pseudoscience, cellular memory. The theory that cells, especially cells from major organs, can somehow retain neurological information or memories from the original donor. It's controversial. Most scientists say it's impossible. Memories are formed in the brain, not in organs. But there are hundreds of documented cases of transplant recipients reporting knowledge, preferences, even memories they shouldn't have. One famous case. An 8-year-old girl received the heart of a 10-year-old girl who was murdered. The recipient started having nightmares about the murder, details she couldn't have known. The information was so specific it helped police arrest the killer. Another case. A man received the liver of a poet. Had never written before but suddenly started composing poems in the exact style of the donor. How is this possible? Nobody knows for sure. Theories range from neuropeptides stored in organ tissue to quantum information encoded at the cellular level. It sounds like science fiction, but it's documented in peer-reviewed medical journals. Here's what keeps me awake. If organs can carry memories, what else do they carry? Traumas, fears, loves, fundamental parts of who the donor was. When you receive an organ from another person, are you receiving just tissue? Or are you, in some mysterious way we don't fully understand, receiving pieces of their soul? David Chen told me something I'll never forget. I was grateful for the life Jennifer gave me, but now, knowing I may be carrying pieces of her with me, I'm grateful in a different way. It's not just the organ, it's the responsibility. I have to live a life that honors her, because part of her is still here, inside me. He changed careers after that, now works for a...
Some people die without anyone to identify them. No family, no documents, no clues. My name is Catherine. I've been working at the state medical examiner's office in Texas for 15 years. This is the story of the woman who remained nameless for 8 years, until the impossible happened. She arrived to us on a cold January morning in 2015, found in a cheap roadside motel. Natural death, heart attack, appeared to be between 55 and 65 years old. No identification, no wallet, no phone. Nothing but the clothes she was wearing. The motel room was paid in cash. False name in the register. The manager said she had been there 3 weeks, always paying cash. Never leaving the room, except to buy food at the gas station next door. She seemed ... sad. The manager told us. Like she was waiting for something. Or maybe running from something. We initiated standard procedure for unidentified body. Fingerprints sent to all databases. Nothing. DNA collected and sent for analysis. No match. Physical description circulated to police departments across the state. Nobody reported a missing person who matched. We performed the autopsy. Cause of death, massive myocardial infarction. But we discovered something interesting. She had surgical scars, an old cesarean section, probably from decades ago, and marks of facial plastic surgery, also old. Someone changed her face, Dr. Martinez noted. This was done professionally, years ago. Rhinoplasty facelift, jaw work. Why would someone completely change their face? I asked. Witness protection. Running from someone. Starting a new life. We tried forensic facial reconstruction, but if she had surgically changed her face, reconstruction based on bone structure wouldn't match how she actually appeared before the surgeries. Nobody came to identify her. No missing persons matched. After 90 days, she was officially designated as Jane Doe, number 2015-20147. But something bothered me. In her belongings, we found an old well-read book, 100 Years of Solitude, by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Spanish edition. In the margins, there were handwritten notes, thoughts, reflections. The handwriting was educated, sophisticated. One note in particular caught my attention. When you change your name, you kill who you were. But you can never kill the memories. I kept the book. Against protocol, but I kept it. Something about that woman haunted me. Jane Doe, number 2015-20147, was buried in a pauper's grave. No name on the headstone. Just the number. But I couldn't forget her. Over the next years, when I had free time, I researched, looked through missing persons databases from decades ago. Nothing. Looked into witness protection cases. Nothing. Until 2023, 8 years later, I received a phone call. A woman, voice trembling. My name is Elena Rodriguez. I'm looking for my sister. She disappeared 15 years ago. I saw a report on TV about unidentified bodies in Texas. I want to see the photos. I sent the photos we had of Jane Doe. Number 201-50147. Post-mortem photos aren't pleasant, but they were all we had. 3 days later, Elena was in my office. She looked at the photos for a long time, tears silently streaming down her face. It's her, Elena whispered. Even with the different face, I know. It's my sister, Carmen. How can you be sure if the face was surgically changed? The hands, Elena said, pointing to the photos. Carmen had a birthmark between the thumb and index finger of her left hand. Small heart shape. It's there, in the photo. And she always wore that type of ring. It was our grandmother's. We checked. Elena was right. The birthmark was there. What happened to her? I asked gently. Elena took a deep breath and told a story that broke my heart. Carmen Rodriguez had been a brilliant lawyer in Chicago, married, an 8-year-old son, perfect life, until she discovered her husband was involved in money laundering for criminal organizations. She went to the police, testified. The husband was arrested along with over 20 people, but the organization swore revenge. They tried to kill her 3 times, Elena said. Even with police protection. Finally, Carmen decided to disappear completely. Changed her face, changed her name, left everything behind. Even you, the family. She said it was for our protection. If they couldn't use us to find her, we'd be safe. It was the last time I spoke to her. 15 years ago. She said, "If you love me, let me go. Forget I existed." And her son, Elena, started crying harder. She left him with his uncle, her brother. He was raised thinking his mother had died in a car accident. Carmen thought it would be less painful than growing up knowing his mother abandoned him. Does he know the truth now? He's 23 now. I'm going to have to tell him his mother didn't die 15 years ago. That she was alive all this time, alone, hiding, unable to see the son she loved more than anything. And that now she's really gone. I gave Elena the book I had kept. She had this with her. Maybe it will help you know her in those final years. Elena opened the book, read the notes in the margins. Her hand went to her mouth, trying to hold back sobs. "This is her handwriting," Alina whispered. Even after changing everything, the handwriting was still hers. She read aloud one of the last notes in the book. "Sacrifice is unnoble if nobody knows you made it. But I know. And maybe that has to be enough." We exhumed the body of Jane Doe. Number 2015-0147. Carmen Rodriguez had a proper funeral, with her real name. Her family was there. And her son, now a 23-year-old man, finally had the chance to say goodbye to the mother he thought he'd lost when he was 8. At the ceremony, he read something he had written. "My mother loved me so much she disappeared to keep me safe. Lived alone for 15 years so I could live free. Died without a name so I could have mine. That's the purest love that exists. And I spent 15 years not knowing I was so loved." There were over 200 people at the funeral. Everyone she had helped as a lawyer before disappearing. Families she saved. People whose lives she changed. And all of them had thought she was dead for 15 years. Carmen Rodriguez spent 15 years alive, but erased. Died alone, in a cheap roadside motel. And for 8 years, was buried without a name. But in the end, her true identity was restored. Her sacrifice was recognized, and her son knows he was loved. Here's what haunts me. How many other people in our paupers' graves are like Carmen? How many have families looking for them? How many died protecting someone they loved? The John Does and Jane Does who pass through our morgues aren't just numbers. They're people who had lives, made choices, loved someone, and someone, somewhere, may be looking for them. Since Carmen's case, I started a project. I photographed the unique marks of each unidentified body, birthmarks, scars, tattoos. I create a digital file accessible to families searching for lost loved ones. So far, I've managed to identify 7 more bodies that had been nameless for years. 7 families who finally got answers. 7 people who recovered their identities. Carmen Rodriguez taught me that identity is sacred. That dying without a name is one of the saddest things that can happen. And that part of my job is ensuring each person who passes through those doors is remembered as they were. A human being with history, with family, with love. If you have someone missing in your life, don't give up. There are resources, DNA databases, organizations that help. And people like me, who keep the details, who maintain the records, who never stop trying to put names on the nameless. Because everyone deserves to be remembered by the name they were born with. Or at least, by the name they chose to live. Leave a like if this story touched you. Share because it might help someone find answers. And activate the bell for the final stories of this compilation.
You trust the professionals around you. You assume everyone has done what they say they've done, that they are who they say they are. My name is Robert. I've been working as a morgue technician at Valley Medical Center in Phoenix for 16 years. This is the story of how we discovered our medical examiner wasn't really a doctor. Dr. Harrison Wells, that was his name. He worked with us for 8 months. Arrived at 9 a.m., left at 5 p.m., conducted autopsies, signed death certificates, spoke with families. Perfectly normal, perfectly competent, or so we thought. The first sign was subtle. A nurse from the main hospital came down to ask something technical about an autopsy Dr. Wells had performed, specific medical terminology, details about cardiac tissue. Dr. Wells responded, but used wrong terms, not gross errors, subtle errors that someone without deep medical training would make. The nurse noticed, but didn't say anything at the time. Medical examiners sometimes have their own terminologies, she thought, but she mentioned it to another doctor, who mentioned it to another, and eventually it reached Dr. Rodriguez, head of the hospital's pathology department. Dr. Rodriguez decided to observe Dr. Wells during an autopsy. Just routine, he said. Quality control. I was present at that autopsy. It was a simple case. Elderly man, natural cause of death. Dr. Wells began the procedure normally, but Dr. Rodriguez started asking questions. "What's your assessment of the liver?" Dr. Rodriguez asked. "Appears to be advanced cirrhosis," Dr. Wells responded, examining the organ. "Interesting. And the cirrhosis pattern, would you classify it as macronodular or micronodular?" Dr. Wells hesitated. Macronodular. Definitely macronodular. Dr. Rodriguez nodded, but I saw something in his eyes. Suspicion. After Dr. Wells left, Dr. Rodriguez examined the liver again. "Robert, come see this." He showed me the hepatic tissue. "This is clearly a micronodular pattern. Any competent pathologist would know. It's basic. Maybe he just got confused." Maybe, but his tone said he didn't believe that. Over the next 2 weeks, Dr. Rodriguez observed Dr. Wells more closely, reviewed previous autopsy reports, and started finding inconsistencies, small, but there, incorrect terminology, procedures executed in wrong order, conclusions that didn't quite match the findings. "He's copying from textbooks," Dr. Rodriguez told me. "He knows enough to seem competent, but doesn't have the deep knowledge of someone who actually studied medicine." "But how is this possible? He was hired. Background checks, credentials, everything." "That's exactly what I'm going to find out." Dr. Rodriguez went to the HR department, asked to see Dr. Wells's employment file. Medical degree, residency, forensic pathology certification, everything was there. But Dr. Rodriguez did something HR hadn't done adequately. He called the institutions directly. The medical school confirmed a Harrison Wells had graduated there, but when they asked to send a photo of the class, the Harrison Wells who graduated was an African-American man. Our Dr. Wells was Caucasian. The residency? They confirmed a Dr. Wells, but the dates didn't match. He would have had to be 16 when he started residency. The forensic pathology certification, the certifying organization, had no record of a Harrison Wells. "He forged everything," Dr. Rodriguez said, almost impressed. "Documents, references, employment history, everything fake." Police were called. Investigators showed up at Dr. Wells's work. Or rather, the man who was impersonating Dr. Wells. His real name was Martin Fletcher, 42 years old. No medical training beyond being a paramedic for 15 years. He had stolen the identity of a real Harrison Wells, who had died in a car accident 3 years earlier, forged credentials, and applied for the position. Why? Was everyone's first question. Martin Fletcher answered calmly when interrogated. "Because I could. Because I always wanted to be a doctor, but didn't have money for medical school. Because I studied on my own for 10 years. All the books, all the procedures, all the online courses I could find, and because I wanted to prove that practical experience is worth as much as a piece of paper on the wall." "You performed hundreds of autopsies without legal qualification," the detective said. "You signed death certificates, testified in criminal cases. You don't see the problem." "How many mistakes did I make?" Martin asked back. Silence. Because here was the most disturbing part. They did a complete review of all 347 autopsies he had performed. They brought in licensed forensic pathologists to review each case. They found 23 cases with small inaccuracies in terminology or documentation. They found 0 cases where the cause of death was wrong. 0. He had 100% accuracy in the determinations that really mattered. Better rate than some legitimately certified medical examiners. He was really good at the job, Dr. Rodriguez admitted reluctantly. Frighteningly good. If not for that small terminology error, we might never have discovered. Martin Fletcher was charged with fraud, identity falsification, illegal practice of medicine. Got 5 years in prison, But here's what keeps me awake. During those 8 months, I worked side by side with him, learned techniques from him. He taught me to be better at my job, and he treated each body, each family, with more respect and compassion than some real doctors I've known. 1 week after he was arrested, I received a letter from him, written from jail. Robert, I regret the chaos I caused. I regret lying to you and everyone else. But I don't regret the work I did. Every person who passed through that room was treated with dignity. Every family received correct answers. Every case was conducted with integrity. The system says a piece of paper makes me qualified. But paper didn't teach me to care for the dead, didn't teach me to look families in the eyes and give impossible news with compassion. Those things you learn by doing. I'm paying now for what I did. And it's right that I pay, but I don't regret giving those people the best care I could, even though society says I didn't have the right to do it. Take care of them, Robert. You were always better at it than you thought. Martin, I never responded to the letter. Wouldn't know what to say because he was wrong to forge credentials, to lie, to violate the law. But he was also right about some things. They hired a new medical examiner 3 weeks later. Impeccable credentials, 20 years of experience, brilliant recommendation letters, everything triple verified. But he's arrogant with families, rushed with bodies. Makes more procedural errors in 1 month than Martin made in 8 months. And sometimes I catch myself thinking, what really makes someone qualified? A diploma, experience, compassion, results? I don't have the answer. But I know this. Martin Fletcher shouldn't have done what he did, but the 347 bodies that passed through his hands were treated by someone who genuinely cared, who dedicated 10 years studying to do the job correctly, even knowing he could never do it legally. And the 347 families received accurate answers, delivered with compassion.
There are absolute rules in a morgue. One of the most fundamental. You don't interrupt an autopsy halfway through. Once you start, you finish. My name is Diana, Assistant Medical Examiner at Metro County Morgue in Atlanta for 11 years. This is the story of when we broke that sacred rule. It was a Thursday in March. We had a case that seemed straightforward. Carl Morrison, 58 years old, apparent death by heart attack at home. No suspicious circumstances. Routine autopsy to confirm natural cause of death. Dr. Stevens was conducting. I was assisting, taking notes. We started at 2 p.m. as planned. The initial Y incision was normal. Sternum retraction was normal. Thoracic cavity exposure was normal. Everything following standard procedure. Dr. Stevens began examining the heart. Ventricles appear normal. Coronary arteries, ... Double quotes, he paused. Wait, Diana, look at this. I approached. The heart was in his hand. It looked normal at first glance, but then I saw. There was something inside the main coronary artery. Something that shouldn't be there. It wasn't a normal blockage, wasn't plaque. It was ... geometric. Like a small, metallic object. Is it a stent? I asked. There are no medical records of a stent, Dr. Stevens replied, grabbing tweezers. And it doesn't look like any stent I've ever seen. He carefully removed the object. It was the size of a grain of rice, metallic, with strange markings on the surface. It looked almost ... technological. This looks like an electronic device, Dr. Stevens murmured, turning it under the light. The moment he said that, the object emitted a high-pitched beep. We both jumped back. The object fell from the tweezers into the metal tray with a clink. And kept beeping. Not randomly. It was a pattern. Beep, dash, beep, dash, beep. Pause. Beep, dash, beep, dash, beep. What the hell is this? I whispered. Dr. Stevens didn't answer. He was looking at Carl Morrison's body. More specifically, at the open chest. Because something was happening. The heart had started beating. Not strong beats. Weak, spasmodic contractions. But unmistakable movement. A heart that was definitely inert 30 seconds ago was now contracting rhythmically. "This isn't possible," Dr. Stevens said. But his voice was mechanical, as if in shock. "He's been dead for 18 hours. No preservation, no circulation, no oxygenation. Cardiac tissue can't." But it was. Before our eyes, the heart was beating. Weak but regular. The device on the tray beeped again. Faster now. And with each beep, the cardiac contractions accelerated. "It's controlling the heart," I whispered. "That device is connected to the heart somehow." Dr. Stevens grabbed the device with tweezers. Immediately, the contractions stopped. He placed it back on the tray. The contractions resumed. We stood there, two doctors with combined decades of experience, watching a phenomenon that defied.
Identity is everything. It's who we are, our story, our legacy. My name is James. I've been working at Sunset Memorial Morgue in San Diego for 19 years. This is the story of how a simple mistake revealed a secret a family kept for 40 years. It started with a basic administrative mix. Two bodies arrived on the same day, at the same time, from different accidents. Both elderly men, both around 70 years old. During the transfer process, the tags were switched. Richard Palmer was identified as Thomas Green. Thomas Green was identified as Richard Palmer. An honest human error. It happens. Rarely, but it happens. The families came to identify the bodies. The Palmer family confirmed, "Yes, that's our father, Richard." The Green family confirmed, "Yes, that's our father, Thomas." Except they were looking at the wrong people. 2 autopsies were performed. 2 funerals were planned, and nobody would have discovered if not for a tattoo. I was preparing the body identified as Richard Palmer for the funeral when I noticed a small tattoo on the left shoulder. A name, Margaret, 1978. This was strange because his records indicated he was never married. No wife Margaret anywhere in his history. I mentioned it to the funeral director, who contacted the Palmer family. "Did your father have any connection to someone named Margaret?" "No," his daughter said, "and my father definitely didn't have tattoos. He hated tattoos." A huge red flag. We called both families back, asked them to look again, more carefully. And this chimney they discovered. "This isn't my father," Richard Palmer's son said, looking at the body. "I thought it was because of the age and the ... but no, this isn't him. Where's my father?" Panic. Pure panic. We had sent the wrong family to the wrong body. Autopsies had been done on the wrong body. Funeral preparations had been made for the wrong people. We quickly brought the other body. The Palmer family looked. "That's my father, definitely." But when the Green family was called to confirm, ... silence. Thomas Green's widow. Eleonora looked at the body for a long time. Her face went through several emotions. Confusion, recognition, fear. "Mrs. Green," I asked gently, "is this your husband?" "I ... double quotes," she started, voice trembling. "I need to speak with you privately." We took her to a separate room. Her children stayed outside, confused. Eleanor Green collapsed in a chair, hands shaking. "That man there, that body, isn't Thomas Green." "No, but also ... It's complicated. You won't understand. Try to explain to us, please." She took a deep breath. "My husband, the Thomas Green, I married in 1975, died in 1982. Construction accident. He fell from scaffolding, died instantly." I was confused. "But you've been married to this man since then, right?" "To his brother," she whispered. "Michael Green, Thomas's twin brother." The story she told was surreal. When Thomas died, he left Eleanor with 2 small children and massive debts. Michael, who was single and had always had feelings for Eleanor, made an offer. "Let me take over his life," Michael said. "I look exactly like him. Nobody will know. The children are too young to remember the difference. I'll pay the debts, take care of you and them, give a stable life, and you won't have to deal with insurance bureaucracy that never pays." It was crazy. It was fraud. It was illegal. But Eleanor was desperate and terrified, so she agreed. Michael Green assumed his dead brother Thomas's identity, married Eleanor under his brother's name, technically committing bigamy with a woman who was already his sister, raised Thomas's children as his own, lived as Thomas Green for 40 years. The real Thomas Green was buried without identification in a pauper's grave. His death was never officially recorded under his real name. He simply disappeared from the system. And the children? I asked. They never knew. They were 3 and 5 when Thomas died, Eleanor said, tears streaming. Michael looked, sounded, and acted exactly like Thomas, identical twin brothers. They never questioned. And when they got older, all their memories were of Michael anyway, but they thought they were memories of Thomas. Nobody else ever suspected. Friends, family, their parents had already passed. Few close friends. And Michael knew everything about Thomas's life. They were very close. He managed to fake it perfectly. But why? Why would Michael do this? Eleanor looked at me with tired eyes. Because he loved Thomas. And because he loved me. And because he saw a chance to save a family instead of seeing it destroyed. Was it wrong? Yes, but it worked. My children had a father. I had a companion. Michael had a family. For 40 years, it worked. The ethical dilemma was immense. Technically, we were obligated to report this. Identity fraud, insurance fraud, document falsification. The list of crimes was extensive, but the man was dead. And exposing the truth now would completely destroy the 2 adult children, who would discover they spent 40 years calling a man who was technically their Uncle Father, while their real father was buried nameless in a common grave. The staff meeting happened, morgue director, lawyers, even a psychologist. What do we do? Finally, we decided on a...
Organ donation saves lives. It's one of the most altruistic acts someone can do. My name is Patricia, Organ Recovery Coordinator, working with Regional Medical Center in Denver for 13 years. This is the story of the transplant that should never have happened. The donor was Jennifer Adams, 32 years old. Motorcycle accident, head trauma, brain death declared, but body kept functioning on life support until organ recovery could be coordinated. She was a registered donor. Everything was in order: liver, kidneys, corneas. 5 lives potentially saved by her generous decision. The recovery procedure was performed at 6 a.m. Standard, professional, respectful. Her organs were transported to various hospitals, where recipients were waiting. Her liver went to a 47-year-old man named David Chen in Seattle. Successful surgery. No complications. He woke up, grateful for a second chance. 3 days later, David started having strange dreams. They weren't his dreams. They weren't his memories. They were hers, Jennifer's. He saw through her eyes, lived moments of her life. I thought they were just side effects from post-surgery medications. He told me later, when everything came to light, hallucinations caused by immunosuppressants, but they were so vivid, so real. In the dreams, he saw an apartment that wasn't his. He saw a man, a face he didn't recognize, but somehow knew was dangerous. He saw arguments, violence, fear, and he saw something else. He saw this man messing with her motorcycle in the garage late at night when he thought she was sleeping, loosening something on the brake, deliberately. David woke up sweating, heart racing. They were dreams, he told himself, just dreams. But he couldn't stop thinking about it. The dreams continued. Every night, more details, more memories that weren't his. Finally, 2 weeks after surgery, he decided to investigate. He looked up Jennifer Adams online, found the accident report. Brake failure caused the motorcyclist to lose control at high speed. Tragic accident. Brake failure. Exactly what he had seen in the dreams. David contacted the police, explained the situation the best he could. knowing how crazy it would sound. I received her liver, and I'm having memories from her, showing that her boyfriend sabotaged the motorcycle. The detective was skeptical. Naturally. Mr. Chen, I understand you went through traumatic surgery. Sometimes the mind creates narratives. I can describe her apartment. I can describe the boyfriend. I can tell you where he put the tool he used. It's in a blue box in the corner of the garage, under old rags. Please just investigate. Maybe to appease him. Maybe because something in his desperation sounded genuine. The detective decided to check. They went to the apartment Jennifer shared with her boyfriend, Marcus Wright. With a search warrant, they checked the garage. They found the blue box. Under old rags. Exactly where David said. Inside, a wrench with brake fluid residue and small metal marks that matched the components of Jennifer's motorcycle brake. Marcus Wright was arrested. During interrogation, he eventually confessed. Jennifer had broken up with him. He was furious, couldn't accept it. He sabotaged her motorcycle, hoping to cause a small accident that would scare her, make her need him again. He didn't plan to kill her. But
I'll be direct. Morgues aren't haunted. I've been working in them for 22 years, never seen a ghost, never experienced paranormal activity, until I started working at the Old County Morgue in New Orleans. My name is Raymond, and this is the only supernatural story I have that's genuine. The Old County Morgue was 140 years old when I started working there. The original building dated from 1880, built after a major yellow fever epidemic. Hundreds of thousands of bodies had passed through its doors over more than a century. The place had a reputation. All the technicians talked about strange experiences, but I always thought it was just the kind of urban legend that grows in any old place that works with death. Until my third solo night shift. It was 2:30 a.m., Tuesday in February. Completely empty, except for 11 bodies in the cold chambers. I was doing paperwork at the technician station when I heard footsteps. Not subtle, loud, clear, deliberate footsteps. Coming from the corridor leading to the chambers. Heavy bootsteps on concrete floor. "Hello," I called, thinking maybe one of the security guards was making rounds. The footsteps stopped. I waited. Nothing. Then, slowly, they resumed, coming in my direction. I stood up, walked to the corridor. Empty. Completely empty. But the footsteps continued, getting louder, closer, and then they passed by me. I felt it. Felt air displacing, as if someone had walked straight through my space. Felt sudden, intense cold, and smelled something. Old formaldehyde. That preservation smell we don't use anymore, but that was common decades ago. The footsteps continued to the old autopsy room, the one we didn't use anymore, and stopped. I was frozen. Every rational instinct told me there was a logical explanation. Therm expansion of pipes, air pressure difference, something, but there wasn't. I knew there wasn't. I called the night security guard. "Mike, did you just pass through the basement corridor?" "No, I'm on the ground floor." "Why?" "Nothing, just, can you come down here?" Mike arrived 5 minutes later. I told him what happened. He nodded, unsurprised. "It's Dr. Matthias," he said casually. "What?" "Dr. Eugene Matthias, medical examiner here from 1912 to 1954. Died at work. Massive heart attack right there in the old autopsy room. They say he never left. Still makes his rounds." "You're kidding, man. I've been working here 11 years. I hear those footsteps every week. Always at 2:30 a.m. Always Tuesday and Thursday." Those were his night shifts. You get used to it. I didn't think I would get used to it, but in the following weeks, it happened again. Always at 2:30. Always Tuesday and Thursday. Always the same heavy footsteps, the same old formaldehyde smell, the same walk to the old autopsy room. And then other things started. Instruments being reorganized. I would leave the tweezers in a specific pattern. Come back, they were in a different order. Always organized, not messy. As if someone with OCD had decided my organization was wrong. The old autopsy room light turned on by itself. Always at 7:15 a.m., exactly when Dr. Matthias used to start his autopsies, according to old records. And the notes. That's what completely convinced me. I would leave my reports on the desk, leave for 10 minutes, come back, and there were notes in the margins. Not in my handwriting, old-fashioned, formal handwriting, with blue ink pen. The notes were corrections. Medical terminology. Not heart attack, ischemic cardiomyopathy. Not drowning asphyxia by submersion. Corrections that were technically correct, more accurate than my terms. I started leaving questions. In writing, on the desk. Before leaving, "Dr. Matthias, if you're here, can you help me with this case? 67 years old, heart appearing normal, but sudden death. I would come back and there were notes. Check, cerebral arteries, aneurysm likely, not cardiac. He was right. We found a ruptured brain aneurysm. For months, I had a ghost mentor. A medical examiner who died 70 years ago was teaching me, guiding me, correcting my errors. Other technicians on the night shift started reporting similar things. Everyone confirmed someone was there, and whatever it was, wanted to help, wanted the work done correctly. One night I left a different note. Dr. Matthias, why are you still here? The answer came, unfinished work. Always more work, always more dead needing answers. When can I rest? That broke my heart. A doctor so dedicated that not even in death could he let go, trapped by sense of duty. I researched about him. Dr. Eugene Matthias had been legendary, worked tirelessly for 42 years, had personally performed over 18,000 autopsies, solved countless criminal cases, saved families from unjust suspicions, gave answers when there seemed to be none, and died at the autopsy table in the middle of a procedure because he refused to go home even feeling chest pains. I decided to do something. It may seem silly, but I tried. The next Tuesday at 2:30, when I heard the footsteps, I spoke aloud. Dr. Matthias, thank you. Thank you for the dedication. Thank you for the teachings. Thank you for caring for everyone who passed through here. But you've done enough. More than enough, you can rest now. We'll take it from here. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Long, heavy silence. Then, a voice. Faint, like wind through tunnels. You'll take over. Yes, we promise to do the best we can. We'll treat each body with respect. We'll seek truth. As you taught, more silence. Then, thank you. A cold breeze passed through me. But different. It wasn't uncomfortably cold, it was ... relief. Like a sigh. The footsteps walked for the last time. To the exit, to the front door that had long been sealed and turned into a wall. I heard a door opening, a door that no longer physically existed, and closing softly. And then, nothing. In the weeks, months, years following, I never heard the footsteps again. The light didn't turn on by itself anymore. There were no more notes. Dr. Matthias had finally left. The other technicians noticed too. The place feels different. Mike, the security guard, said. Less ... inhabited. Did you do something? I gave him permission to go. I replied. He needed to hear it was okay to rest. Sometimes I wonder if it was really a ghost or if all of us, working in that old place full of history and death, had created some kind of collective illusion, psychological rationalization for work stress. But then I remember the notes. The handwriting none of us could have faked. The medical corrections using terminology from the 1940s and 50s that I had to research to understand. And I remember the voice, faint but clear. Thank you. If you work with death, with suffering, with tragedy, know this. There's a point where dedication becomes imprisonment. There's a moment to let go. To trust that others will continue the work. To rest. Dr. Eugene Matthias worked for 42 years alive and 70 years dead. 112 years of service. He deserved peace. And all of us who do this work will eventually deserve it too. If this story touched you, leave a like. If you know someone in a service profession, doctors, nurses, police, firefighters, send this story to them. Remind them it's okay to rest. It's okay to let go. It's okay to trust that others will take.
Generosity can change the world, but sometimes the greatest generosity happens in silence, without anyone knowing. My name is Thomas. I've been working at Veterans Affairs Medical Center Morgue in Cleveland for 18 years. This is the story of the man who donated millions, and nobody knew until he died. His name was George Patterson, 73 years old. Natural death, heart failure, lived alone in a small one-bedroom apartment. No known family, no close friends. Worked as a janitor at a public school for 40 years until retiring. When I received the body, it seemed like a sad but common case. Elderly man, alone, modest life. We expected he would be buried as indigent. But then the lawyer appeared. His name was Richard Chun, from a large and respectable law firm. He brought documents. Many documents. Mr. Patterson was my client for 35 years, he explained. He hired me with very specific instructions about what to do after his death. Did he have family? No. But he had a very, very interesting will. What Chun told us changed everything. George Patterson, the humble janitor, had saved meticulously for 40 years. Lived on the absolute minimum. Cheap apartment. Thrift store clothes. Simple food. Never bought a car. Never took vacations. Never spent money on anything but basic necessities. And invested every penny that was left over. Over 40 years, with careful and consistent investments, George Patterson accumulated $4.7 million. 4,700,000, I repeated, shocked. A janitor, a very, very frugal janitor. With talent for investments, June confirmed, and he left instructions on how every penny should be used. The instructions were extraordinary. George Patterson divided the $4.7 million into 47 parts of $100,000 each, and specified exactly where each part should go. 15 complete scholarships for students from the school where he worked, named anonymously, just Patterson Scholarship. 10 donations of $100,000 to specific families he had observed over the years. Families struggling with medical debt, evictions, financial emergencies. He had kept a list. Knew each story. 5 donations to specific teachers from that school who had been especially kind to him over the years. They never knew the janitor was watching and appreciating. 10 donations to local charity organizations he had carefully researched. And 7 donations of $100,000 to specific children he had seen grow up at the school. Children who had been kind to him, who had talked to him, who treated him like a person and not just the janitor. These 7 children don't know yet, I asked. Nobody knows yet, Chun said. Mr. Patterson insisted it only be revealed after his death, and insisted it be anonymous. People will receive the money without knowing where it came from. Why anonymous? He wrote a letter explaining. May I read it to you? Chun opened an envelope. The letter was handwritten, with careful penmanship. My name is George Patterson. If you're reading this, I'm gone. For 40 years, I worked.
Identity is something we assume is simple. You are who your documents say you are. My name is Lisa. I've been working at Metropolitan Medical Center Morgue in Philadelphia for 7 years. This is the story of the man who lived 2 completely different lives at the same time, and nobody knew. His name was Michael Thompson. Or it was James Richardson. It depended on which family you asked. He arrived to us on a Tuesday in March. Fatal car accident on the highway. 52 years old. Driver's license said Michael Thompson. Address in Philadelphia. We contacted the family. The wife, Karen Thompson, arrived for identification. She collapsed when she saw the body. That's my husband, Michael, she confirmed between sobs. Married for 28 years. 2 daughters. Standard procedure. We began preparations. And then, 3 hours later, we received another phone call. A woman named Susan Richardson calling from New Jersey. I saw the report about the highway accident. The man in the photo. I think that's my husband. Your husband? James Richardson. He was traveling for work. Didn't come home last night. That man in the news? It's him, I'm sure. My heart sank. This couldn't be happening. Susan Richardson arrived 2 hours later. We took her to the identification room. She looked at the body. That's my husband, James, she said with absolute certainty. Married for 24 years. 3 children. We had a problem. 2 wives, 2 names, 1 person. We called the police. A detective named Morrison was put in charge. He began investigating. What they discovered was extraordinary. Michael Thompson lived in Philadelphia, worked as a financial consultant, married to Karen since 1995, 2 daughters, 26 and 23 years old, house in the suburbs, completely normal life. James Richardson lived in Newark, New Jersey, worked as a civil engineer, married to Susan since 1999, 3 children, 21, 19 and 16 years old, downtown apartment, completely normal life, and they were the same person. How did he manage it? For 24 years? The investigation revealed a meticulously elaborate system. He told the Philadelphia family he traveled a lot for work. 2 weeks per month, sometimes 3. International projects, he explained. Can't talk much about it for confidentiality reasons. He told the New Jersey family the exact same thing. Constant work travel. It's the price of success. But he wasn't traveling. He was alternating between 2 families, 2 homes, 2 complete lives. Financially, he was brilliant. 2 real jobs, both well paid. 2 sets of bank accounts, 2 sets of documents. He managed to keep everything separate for over 2 decades. But here's what broke me. When both families found out, we expected anger, hatred, trauma. And there was that too. But there was something else. Karen Thompson told us, Michael was the perfect husband. Never missed an anniversary. never missed our girls' graduations, always present when he promised to be. He was thoughtful, loving, dedicated. Susan Richardson said almost the same words. James was amazing, present at every school recital, every soccer game for the boys, always there, always loving. Both families were genuinely loved. He wasn't neglecting one for the other. He was, sometimes even in death, one person can change the world. My name is Michael, transplant coordinator at Pacific Medical Center in San Francisco for 14 years. This is the story of the largest organ donation chain I've ever witnessed. The donor was Alex Chen, 28 years old. Cycling accident, brain death, but perfectly healthy body. And most importantly, Alex was what we call a universal donor. O-negative blood type, which can donate to anyone. Tissue type with extremely broad matching. Young, healthy, athletic. He was literally the perfect donor, and he had signed the donor card when he got his driver's license at 16. He always said if something happened, he wanted everything used, his mother Linda Chen told us. Heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, corneas, tissues, skin, everything. Don't let anything go to waste, he would joke. But he was serious. We initiated the organ recovery protocol. Normally, one donor saves 3 to 5 lives. But Alex was special. In 18 hours, we coordinated heart for 16-year-old girl in Los Angeles, both lungs for 52-year-old man in Seattle, liver for 41-year-old woman in Phoenix, right kidney for 9-year-old child in Portland, left kidney for 67-year-old man in San Diego, pancreas for 35-year-old woman with diabetes in Denver, both corneas for 2 blind patients, tissues, bones, skin that would help over 50 additional people in reconstructive surgeries. In total, Alex Chen directly saved 8 lives and improved the lives of over 50 other people. But here's where the story becomes extraordinary. The chain didn't stop there. The 16-year-old girl who received the heart, Emily, had been on the transplant list for 3 years. Her parents had lost hope. When she received Alex's heart and survived surgery, they were so grateful they started a foundation to raise awareness about organ donation. Their foundation registered 14,000 new donors in the first year. Statistically, if even a small percentage of those donors eventually donate organs, that's hundreds of additional lives saved. The 52-year-old man who received the lungs, Richard, was an ex-smoker with severe COPD. After transplant, he dedicated the rest of his life to anti-tobacco campaigns. His personal story of almost dying and being saved by organ donor inspired over 200,000 people to stop smoking, according to campaign research. How many lives were saved from lung cancer and heart disease because of this? Impossible to calculate, but probably thousands. The 41-year-old woman who received the liver, Jessica, had 3 small children. Without the transplant, they would have grown up without a mother. Instead, she saw them grow, graduate, marry. She has 7 grandchildren now, an entire lineage that wouldn't exist without Alex. The 9-year-old child who received the kidney, Marcus, grew up and became a doctor. He now works in nephrology, specializing in kidney transplant. To this day, at 35, he has supervised over 200 kidney transplants, lives saved by someone who was saved by Alex. Can you see the pattern? Each life saved by Alex created ripples. Families remained intact. Children had parents. Parents kept children. And some of those recipients dedicated their lives to saving others. 3 years after Alex's death, we organized a donor family meeting event. Linda Chen, Alex's mother, had the opportunity to meet some of the recipients. Emily, who received the heart, hugged Linda and said, "Can I hear your son? His heart is beating inside me. He gave me life." Linda placed her hand on Emily's chest. Felt Alex's heart beating, rhythmically, strong. She cried. But they weren't tears of just sadness. They were tears of something more. "He's still here," Linda whispered. "Pieces of him are keeping all of you alive. He's not completely gone." The event was emotional. 8 primary recipients were there. Some of the 50-plus people who received tissues also attended. And families, spouses, children, parents, of people who had been saved. In total, over 100 people in a hall, all connected by a 28-year-old young man who died in a cycling accident. Linda gave a speech I'll never forget. "Alex lived 28 years, but through you, he continues living. Emily has his heart, so he'll experience first loves and graduations he himself will never have. Richard has his lungs, so he'll breathe mountain and ocean air for years to come. Jessica has his liver, so he'll go to grandchildren's birthdays. My son didn't have children of his own. But in a way, all of you are his descendants, his lineage, his immortality. And when you live, truly live, do it with his spirit. Alex loved adventure, loved helping people, loved laughing. Live with courageous hearts, lungs full of fresh air, kidneys that filter not just toxins but negativity. Make him proud, because as long as you're alive, he's alive. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Here's something I discovered later. One of the tissue recipients, a man who received skin graft after severe burns, was there. His name was David, and he was a firefighter. 3 months after receiving Alex's skin graft, David returned to work. During his career in the 12 years since then, he personally saved 27 people from fires. 27 people who would be dead if David hadn't received that tissue, hadn't recovered, hadn't returned to work. All those 27 people owe their lives to Alex Chen, even without knowing he exists. If you do the math, 8 direct organ recipients, 50+ tissue recipients, 14,000 new donors registered by Emily's foundation, thousands who stopped smoking inspired by Richard, 200+ kidney transplant patients treated by Marcus, 27 people saved from fires by David. One life, Alex Chen's life, reverberated to potentially save or improve over 20,000 lives from one person because of a choice he made at 16 to mark yes on an organ donor card. This is the closest thing to magic that exists in the real world. One person dying can create a chain of life that spreads like tree roots, connecting hundreds, thousands of people in an invisible network of gratitude and survival. If you're not a registered donor, please consider becoming one. Takes 2 minutes online, and can literally create a legacy that lasts decades and touches thousands. Alex Chen was 28 when he died. But through all these people he saved, and all the people they touched, he'll live for centuries. His impact cannot be erased. He achieved the closest to immortality a human can achieve. And you can too. Leave a like if you're a registered organ donor, or if this story convinced you to register. Activate the bell for the final story of this compilation, which will close with a message of hope that everyone who works with death eventually needs to hear.
After 25 years working in morgues, I've lost count of how many bodies have passed through my hands. Maybe tens of thousands. Each with a story, a family, a life that ended. My name is John, and I've told 14 stories of horror, sadness, mystery, and tragedy. But this last story is different. It's about why, after all this, I still wake up and come to work every day. 3 months ago, I received a body that completely changed my perspective. Her name was Sofia Martinez, 91 years old. Natural death, in her sleep, at home. The family was with her. Peaceful death, exactly how we all hope to go when our time comes. There was nothing special about the medical case, but when the family came for final identification, they brought something. A box, old, wooden, hand-decorated. Sofia left instructions. Her granddaughter, Maria, explained. She said when she died, this box should be opened in the presence of the person who would prepare her body for the funeral. You? Me? I was confused. Why? We don't know. She was very specific. Said it was for the person at the morgue, not for the family. Can we open it together? We opened the box. Inside were letters. Hundreds of them. Some yellowed with age, some more recent, and on top, a letter addressed to whoever cares for the dead. I read aloud to the family. To the person reading this, my name is Sofia Martinez. I'm 91 years old as I write this, and if you're reading it, it means my long life has finally come to an end. You didn't know me in life, but let me tell you who I was. I was born in 1933. I lived through the Great Depression, World War II, the Civil Rights Movement, Man on the Moon, the digital age, pandemics. I saw the world change in unimaginable ways. I married the love of my life, Roberto. In 1952, we had 52 years together before he departed. I had 4 children, lost one to cancer at 34. The other 3 gave me 11 grandchildren and 7 great-grandchildren. I was a teacher for 43 years, taught approximately 3,000 children to read, write, love learning. I volunteered at nursing homes for 30 years after retiring, held the hands of over 200 people as they died, because nobody else was there. I traveled to 27 countries, read over 5,000 books, planted 3 gardens. Del Bloom painted 47 paintings, none particularly good, but all with love. I laughed, cried, loved, lost, built, destroyed, healed, hurt.
We have over 200 stories to tell, from medical professionals from all environments, each one a window into the hidden world of medicine and death. Activate the bell to be notified when we post the next compilation. Next will be about palliative care nurses, and I promise it will make you cry in different ways. And comment below. Which story impacted you most? Which made you think? Which changed your perspective on death? Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Whether someone in the medical field feeling burned out, someone dealing with grief, or just someone who needs to remember that life is precious. Until the next compilation, care for the living, honor the dead, and live a life that deserves to be remembered. This was Medical Horror Stories. Thank you for listening.